Hello, everybody, and welcome to a podcast here for Arkham Horror, the card game podcast in quotes, because it is a video podcast, and there are going to be relevant things on the screen that we're going to be talking about and not talking about in audio, but it's the best way to call it when we talk about something for 1 hour. And you brought this idea here for me, for this video, Daniel, so I'm going to throw this to you. What is our main talking point for today's Arkham podcast?
I did. I've just been kind of racking my brain the last few days about kind of the difficulty in this game and how sometimes we just make it look easy and the game's just like a fun walk in the park. And then sometimes you play maybe even the same campaign and you just get your teeth punched out and you're like, what happened? Why is this so different? And I think there's a lot of things to talk about here, but one of the things I like about this game is that there's so many different moving pieces. There's different investigators, different campaigns, different cards, and that makes for maybe a very different experience. But sometimes you sit back and say, what's responsible for the experience that I have? Is it, which of these things is actually the biggest deal? And moving into this Chapter 2 environment, I've just really wanted to get to know these new cards. What is the current environment like? Because I wasn't around at the very beginning of this game. You've played since the beginning, so getting, I don't know, the traditional Arkham Horror experience that y'all had is a bit newer to me. I do think things are easier in, like last year compared to when I came in, which was 6 years ago. But even so, I wasn't playing with a tiny card pool. I wasn't having some of these experiences that people had where you just failed a lot or maybe all the time. And yeah, I don't know if that's what's going on here with just, I've been trying a lot of new campaigns with just the Chapter 2 cards, and that includes some of the long campaigns from Chapter 1, just running through with the Chapter 2 card pool, and want to see how that goes. Should I say more? Do you have more discussion on that?
No, I think so. I think this is a very interesting topic for this, because I do think that difficulty is something that, like, where does the difficulty come from in Arkham? And I think the answer to that is, simply put, is the surface level answer. It's the scenario, right? Like, that's the concept, like the encounter deck and then the token bag. Those are like the basic idea for that's where the game is hard. But I do think that it goes like, it's like a fucking onion. It goes like layer and layer and layer deeper for what actually influences the difficulty of a scenario. And when you were doing that intro, I want to get this on the screen in a way that's like good. But this is an example, a very notable example. Here, I'm actually just going to pause this for a second so people don't see me edit this. All right, so this is an example of when good decks can go bad. So this is a very notable one here. That's us again, yeah. This is from the Bless run that you and I did on your channel, where I was a pretty good Will Yorick deck. I wouldn't say a great deck by any means, and you were a very, very solid, like a very good like Carolyn deck as well. Mm-hmm. But this deck has a very notable experience. It's this scenario, right? Depths of Yoth.
The Serpent from Yoth.
The Serpent from Yoth, who's there for like the entire, like, an entire agenda worth of time. And I think that's him right there. And it's just of how things can go bad from things that are outside of your control. Yeah, this guy who took me forever to kill. Like, forever. And this was a pretty solid combat deck there. Up until this point, there were no stressors about dealing with enemies in this campaign, right? But it went very bad. And a big part of that was the token pulls, right? But I think it sometimes goes even deeper than just like the concept of encounter deck and
cultist token. I knew it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, there's the bless. Yeah, we can see what happens here. Another bless, so that's good. Then you can automatically succeed. But like, that's the thing, right? Like, there's so much variance that comes into Arkham that can really impact a scenario. And I think the Forgotten Age is a great one to talk about, like this example here, because it's the one that you've played. You played 3 times recently, and currently playing 3 times, and they've all been very different experiences. And Forgotten Age can be a very swingy campaign depending on how things go, and the scenarios themselves are also quite swingy when it comes into the moment. Or we might come back to that later, but that's where we're looking at this here. But like, this was a scenario where just things went bad in a way that like I can't even really think about why, right? And then like, so that's an example of like a scenario going bad. But then there was, do I still have this deck here, or did I delete it? No, I still have it, unfortunately. Then it's sometimes the deck. So here is my Tommy deck for the Initials Challenge.
Initials Challenge.
And like, this is where another aspect of the difficulty comes in. And you might be thinking, yeah, but Justin, I see a Time Worm brand, right? Like I see Michael Lee. I see like Tetsuo Mori. These are good cards. But good cards don't make a deck good. Like a deck is like top down from the initial idea to like the very last card. Like it's like all 30 cards in your deck in theory are working together to do something well. Like
needs the glue.
Yeah, it's the glue. Yeah, we look at the events where the glue usually lives, and like there's not much going on here, right? It's kind of just stuff. And I think this is where your concept of what you were talking about, how like a limited collection is very different than playing with a full pool. This is why we do challenge runs, because it kind of adds an exciting challenge to it. It's kind of like, at least for Travis Bird and I, chasing the days where we had this small collection to try and get that Arkham struggle feeling that just doesn't really exist in Legacy into the same extent, especially at 3 and 4 players. You can do like anything in Legacy at 3 and 4 players, and you're gonna do absolutely fine.
I mean, sometimes you can even pull off a Fighter Kate deck with even with a limited card pool. But the point of playing with the limited card pool should not just have access to all the staples, all of the best versions of every card, and even to stack all of these things up. So if we're going to talk about, I mean, some of the TFA stuff I'm bringing up, just like the noticeable things with the smaller card pool. So in the Chapter 2 only version that I've been playing through, it's just 2-player with the Chapter 2 Tommy and Trish Scarborough. And the interesting thing is to compare it to this other 3-player version that's totally Legacy, although it has a couple of hooks there, but still, a Finn Edwards has the same ability as Trish. But a Finn Edwards with 2 copies of Pickpocketing 2 versus a Chapter 2 Trish Scarborough and Lucky Cigarette Case 3 versus a Trish Scarborough in Chapter 2 who has her Covert Ops 1 copy of Sticky Fingers and, level 0 Lucky Cigarette Case. It's a lot different. Like just saying that, probably, I mean, you perked up and like, yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
It's hard to understate how much those economy staples, and I mean, I call them staples. They're just really fantastic cards that make the rest of your deck do kind of whatever you want because you can find and afford them, right?
Yeah.
That's just that's playing a card game. And I think what my experience with the Chapter 2 stuff is that if you don't have that and it's hard to get there, then you get back on the struggle bus a bit.
All right, so I think that this is a nice thing. I want to actually just search, I'm just going to put in draw here.
Sure.
And, like, we can just see, like, cards that, like, draw a card. So, like, we're not going to look at them individually, but I'm just going to scroll through Legacy with draw. And then we're going to do it for current, just to kind of, like, see, like, the difference between this, right? So, yeah, a good number of options. Of course, they're all specific. They all have their own things. You know, and I actually just want to even get rid of the player cards. The signature cards too.
Sure.
But
even something like Runic Axe, which has nuts stuff already, the fact that it can draw while you're also doing other things,
Yes. Yeah, so like
pickpocketing is there too, right?
yeah, we're still going. We got a bunch of stuff here. Like there's just a lot of different options and they're on powerful cards as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we're going to be see psychoanalysis in current as well. But a big thing is another aspect of the difficulty beyond all this, another layer of the onion. So there we go. We're at the bottom here.
Level 2 skills. Oof.
Is playing in is playing with the player count, right? Like we've said for a long time that 4 players is very easy Arkham. Not easy Arkham, but like much easier in comparison to 2 players, right? Which is then like every player you add, the more your decks are able to focus on what they're doing, or alternatively have fun with what they're doing. It's like another thing is like an example is you and I have played a lot of Slay the Spire together, and I've played a lot of Slay the Spire with co-op. You can do a lot more in co-op that you can't do in single player just because there's more people to quote-unquote pick up the slack, so to speak, for the areas that you're lacking. All right, I'm just going to go through the draw card on current here.
But also,
That's it.
I feel like... Oh, wait, that's it?
That's it.
This is just level 1 to 5 or level 0 also?
Oh, level 0 to make it. There we go. Okay. No, I want both of these, please. Yeah, level 0. There we go.
I mean, even so, like, Scroll of Pharaoh's level 0 isn't a draw card. But
I don't want signatures. There we go.
Hey,
yeah,
how many Guardian cards have we seen?
I'm counting 0.
I guess we could add, like, right? Because right tool for the job sort of is... sort of card draw. I don't know. Protective vest, kind of, right?
Yeah, all the ad kind of comes in here.
Well,
so what if it did like card as well?
Well,
where does card come on this card? Discarding it. Okay, no, that does make sense. Card is on there. But yeah, like basically it's coming down to in current what we have here is the options are a lot less limited. And there was, as we saw, there's Ward of Protection, which doesn't actually draw a card, but we were just searching and putting card in the game text search here.
right.
But as you can see that the options are a lot more restrictive. And while Guardians have some good pieces, like let's just look at Guardian stuff here. Like Guardians have some good pieces in their deck, like the M1911 is actually just like a power crept 45 automatic, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because 45 automatic was always just kind of okay. But like, and it got Logan Hastings. It's gotten Detective Sherman, who is also another very strong ally, art notwithstanding, right? It got like Police Dog, who both you and I think is a very powerful card, right? It got Counterattack. It got Bounty. Like, it got a lot of good pieces. But the things that it's really missing is that card draw. And, or like that consistency. And other classes make up for that with, like, Guardians in theory are supposed to kind of make up with that in their off-class options. But Tommy doesn't get that. Tommy doesn't get that. So there's just like another layer on what makes this game difficult. If it goes beyond this scenario, your investigator choice, your collection, that investigator's strength and weaknesses, and that investigator's card pool strength and weaknesses. Because I think now we know what Tommy's strength is for his card pool, right? Firearms and good allies. But what are his weaknesses? Card draw.
So let me ask you a question about the Guardian class in general. Where do you get the action advantage with all of these cards? Like, what do you see here that helps you get beyond that typical 3 actions per turn, you know, or the equivalent, right?
With this card pool, great question. I think the only answer is there's not really one. So I was going
So
to
the
say the
answer is
close
the
things
damage,
are,
right?
like, service revolver,
Yes, right?
like, service revolver,
Yes.
the
Right. Exactly,
damage, yeah,
right?
and then, like, counterattack, right?
Hmm.
Like, these are the things that kind of let you do things that are breaking. I think Make 'em Sing is another one that kind of gives them the extra actions, but it really is just the damage, right?
So it's mostly on cards that are events or kind of the damage question, which is an interesting question in itself. Like that's where it feels like, okay, I can fight better. I can deal more damage than anyone else, kind of. But that's not really the way that the other classes have broken the game in Legacy, right? It's stuff like I can draw extra cards per turn with Lucky Cigarette Case. I can get extra resources every turn, and not just one of them with Logan, which isn't every turn. It's more than that, right? Like it's stacking all these things up into this, beautiful cycling through your deck multiple times thing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's no safe card, right?
Yeah, I
That's
think that's like I think the big reality is that Guardian has lost like some of their key pieces in Legacy that allow them to kind of stay competitive in their way, right? And I think that losing Safeguard, even though I never play Safeguard, I know the card's good, but like I know that Guardians are missing it, right? Another one is Stand Together, which if I spell right is there. Like this is even the level 0 version is really good economy for the Guardian class, but also for the whole team, right? Because like the concept of Guardian action compression has always kind of been damage and relying on compressing other people's actions as well, right? So it's like your compression is your movement in Safeguard, right? Your compression here is one of the craziest economy cards in the game, right? Like everybody draws 2 and gain, like 2 people draw 2 and gain 2, right? But like in 2 players, that's everybody, and that's really good. You're
very
getting
good.
what is that? You're up 7 actions essentially when you play this card, because
Ever Vigilant.
Ever Vigilant. Yep, that's another one. Yeah.
It's a big miss. And you can even make the argument that Stick to the Plan is like drawing 3 cards. I
Yes.
would agree with that.
And like it's kind of the hey, it's Logan Hastings again.
Yeah.
I never realized that. But he's here again.
He's here.
The big thing is that Guardian has always been like the fair class, right? To their benefit and to their detriment. And I think that when you go to a smaller pool, that detriment really starts to show itself. I don't think it's the only class that has weaknesses in this small card pool, but I think that if you look at the full big picture, right, where we also now start looking at investigators, I think that this is when we start seeing the weaknesses of Tommy Muldoon as an investigator, right? You and I just recorded a video where it's compared to Carolyn Fern. Her ability is kind of just free. Like, yeah, you have to have horror, but there's cards that enable horror, right? Tommy Muldoon's ability, like the discarding an firearm mass you control, is a very good way to have that ability come across, right? But the action to spend a resource is already really tough when they're not really able to compress their resources as efficiently as some of the other classes. They do have Bounty, which is a very strong economy card, but like they're lacking where's Bounty? You gotta get to the events.
They can't really find it.
Yeah, like that's the thing.
To...
Yeah, like the card draw is also really tough for this kind of thing. And this is where we're going to kind of look at like your Tommy deck that you're playing in Forgotten Age and Bryn's current Tommy deck in Feast of Hemlock Vale. And he has that perk of playing in 3 players where he is able to take time to draw cards because he's not as required to be all in on solving an enemy problem when it comes up, because I'm playing a Marie Lambeau that is also able to kill enemies very efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, you just sort of notice these things. Like you said, drawing cards is not something you plan on doing, right? You'd rather have cards that give you that passive card draw. So you just sit back and say, well, I can't use the cards in my hand. I need to draw some more. And yeah, I mean, the fighting actually hasn't been bad. Like, the passing the fights generally hasn't been a problem, although the Brotherhood cultists in Threads of Fate were a big problem. That's just, there's not a good solution for those in the card pool, the small card pool. It just becomes you fight them 2 or 3 times and the doom escalates, and if it goes bad, then it goes bad. Like, there's no I don't know, string of curses, right? Like, it just feels like back in the old days when people rightly said that Brotherhood cultists were the scariest enemy in the game, just because there isn't, like, I mean, you only have 1 vicious blow also. Like, how else am I dealing the extra damage? So it's tough.
I actually also do legitimately think, because the other investigator you have is Trish Scarborough, right?
Yeah.
I want to just get her pool up here. I actually do legitimately think, and people might say I'm crazy for this, but I do actually think this Seeker Rogue pool is not great for compression right now.
It's not what it was.
Yeah, I think a big thing is that the it's really good for card draw, right? Like, and it's really good for evading, but I think that there's a lot of pieces that kind of just fall into this where there's like a big difference between like a Kluver Carolyn Fern in chapter 2 versus a Kluver Trish. Because Trish, she doesn't have compression anymore, right? She just, like, her ability used to be great compression, and the evade action, the free evade action is really good, but there's a big reason why in Legacy Trish outpaced Finn, and it's because of that compression on the Investigator card. Like, anytime you can get some sort of, like, ways to get more clues, the Investigators end up being really strong because of that.
Yeah, you're just taking, lock picks or these kid actions, and that's fine. Yeah. Like, you pass the test generally, except for when you don't. And yeah, fingerprint kit is there too, and there's the upgrade deductions. Like, it's hard to say like it's been a problem. It's just not exceeding kind of the pace that we say is the baseline, right? Like, imagine if you throw just as simply as an ally like Lola Santiago, right? There is no, I mean, that's such a nuts ally because of the compression. You finish scenarios so much more quickly because all you need to do is throw in some money. And when you're already getting money off of pickpocketing and you can have multiple in play, it compounds, right?
Yeah.
And there's just nothing, it's not that these cards are bad. It's just that I think the sum of all of them is worse than looking at them individually.
Yeah. And, like, Olivier Bishop does a good job of giving Trish, like, compression. I assume is Olivier the ally of choice that the Trish is playing? Yeah. And that does, like, really good. But the stark reality and the next layer of difficulty that that kind of just poke at here is getting, so, like, a good deck is always ahead, right? But a good deck is also able to stabilize when it's behind.
Yes.
And that ability to stabilize is something that is really felt with smaller collections. Olivier Bishop, you might be thinking, this is your compression, right? Like, this is where you're saving on actions. And it's true when you're ahead. But what if you start to fall behind? What does that free movement action actually give you each turn, right?
Nothing. Maybe you get away from the enemies further, but that doesn't actually progress the scenario, you know?
And, like,
it's kicking the count down the road. It's not that good.
And, like, and that's why, like, these effects, like, I'm not saying Olivier Bishop's a bad card. He's our top-rated ally in our video, right? But when it looks at these kind of things, it's like when you get to a smaller collection, and, like, when you're even looking at, like, why am I losing a scenario? You have to ask yourself, like, is my deck designed to win, or is it designed for like winning more, right? And in a certain case, cards like Olivier kind of become like win more if you're behind, right? Like he doesn't do anything for that. And that's why like clue compression or free clues become very, very powerful. And like it's a big change. Like even just going like from pickpocketing to sticky fingers, right? Sticky fingers, like the resources you gain from these, those aren't going to help you win, right? Like card draw helps you win, and that's why like pickpocketing is better, and why pickpocketing 2 is so good, because it gives you cards and resources, right? Like arguably potentially a little bit too good in the right deck, but like if you're following the same side of principle where it's like, oh, I'm playing pickpocketing, so I'm going to be good with sticky fingers, it doesn't really actually do the same thing for helping you get ahead when you start to fall behind. Because like if we look at it, I mean, like there are some issues with the rogue investigator deck. Like we've talked about that on the past, where like these weird events kind of just like don't do too much. Like we look at this, it does deal 3 damage, like Backstab did, but the enemy has to be evaded, which is not bad for Trish, right? But already it's like you're not really getting ahead with this card, right? It's still 2 actions for most rogue investigators to get 4 damage on an enemy, which is generally 2 actions, right? The clean
it's only
sweep.
3 damage.
It's only 3 damage? Wow. Okay,
yeah, it's
even
2, right?
So yeah. So sorry, I guess I say when I meant to say 3, I meant killing the 3 health enemy in 2. But yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing, right? Where it's like your 2 actions to kill the 3 health enemy is still 2 actions, and it's why like Backstab is good, because it does that 3 health enemy in 1 action. It's expensive, right? And you have to work for it, but you're able to kind of like compound that with other things. And like a sudden fall, imagine a world, like just imagine, if you will, if instead of sticky fingers, these were pickpocketing 0 and pickpocketing 2. Suddenly, now to set up your sudden fall, you're drawing a card and gaining a resource. Or God forbid you have 2 and you're drawing 2 and gaining 2, right? Like
it's a big difference, yeah.
That's kind of like where like the smaller pool can really come in ways that don't seem particularly obvious for like that kind of thing. And it's why actually the card that impressed me the most has been right under their noses, because it's like one of the few ways to actually like compress clues in actions that you would otherwise like. This allows you to start getting ahead. So like in the Forgotten Age, if like you're stuck with an enemy, you can evade that enemy, grab 2 clues and then be like, okay, now I can leave, right? Like I can, and I'm set up for this next location that has there. But even this, you actually see that in chapter 2 they've changed the value of of these burst clues, where you're not getting 2 from your location. You're getting 1 from your location and 1 from a connecting location. So already this card is also actually even weaker than stuff we would have seen in the past, which I think is also a very interesting. Yeah, which I think is also a very interesting kind of thing to see in action.
Oof. So, yeah, ultimately in this run, which just has us not getting very much XP, and you get behind, you kind of stay behind on that sort of tracker. The biggest problem has been on the treachery front, where if you look at the 2 investigators aren't the most optimal for going through the Forgotten Age. If you look at, Trish should be good, but granted, the willpower for her is tough, and for Tommy, he's got 3, which is not horrible. It's just not enough to do much with after that. Like his agility is only 2, so he's actually pretty weak to the Mythos phase, I would say. And what do you usually do to protect yourself from the Mythos phase? Like what kinds of cards are you looking for from a legacy card pool? Like for someone with Tommy's stat line, like what kinds of things do you think about?
My true answer for legacy is efficiency, is compression, is winning the game, drawing 5 less cards.
Right. So you finish before that
You
kind of
die.
catches up to you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And you can't really do that on smaller pools.
That's harder to do. But even if you get like something in the first few mythos phases that become a problem, where you need to solve some random tests that show up, like what do you do? There's some things like if it's damage or horror, you can soak those kinds of things, right? You play out some assets that have good, you know, uh, good value for that, right? Take the initiative. That there's a good skill card for passing tests, right? Um, this was a staple for a long time. Want to look at all the skills in Guardian
On chapter
in
2,
chapter 2? Mm-hmm.
it's going to be dark, isn't it? We're going to have a dark day here. Give me just Guardian, please. Yeah.
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 So run Unexpected Courage, run Guts, and now we're starting to eat into the rest of the deck that needs to be focused on guns and supporting the gun lifestyle. And that's tough because none of these skills, replenish or anything like that. Armed to the Teeth is fine. But again, the willpower icon here only works. I mean, it's only one, but if it's going to get you extra if you're going to commit to something on one of your items. Adapt and Overcome, you can only use on attacks or evasions. You can't use it on your snake bite.
Yeah.
Indomitable?
I mean, the thing is during the Mythos phase,
Yeah, exactly.
it's just an Unexpected Courage or a Guts that doesn't replenish itself, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a card you're using to fight boss monsters in the scenario, right? Like,
Yep.
that's why this card is here. Yeah, and like, I think a big thing is, let's just do a quick thing. Let's just pivot to the Mystic class.
Right.
Right? Because, like, the Mystic class is this, I think, in the best position after this, apart from maybe Survivor. Survivor's really up there as well. But this Mystic class, just even these two cards, like giving yourself 7 wild icons over 2 cards in your deck, right? So that means you have 14 wild icons for just 4 cards in your deck.
Yep.
Like, so when you ask the question, like, what do you do to beat the encounter deck? And the answer is, for me, is compression, win quicker. But the other answer is just run 2 copies of a multi-wild icon card, right? Because that will beat the 2 encounter cards that you're scared of when they show up, and then everything else you'll be able to either tank through or win before, right? And Mystics have that luxury
already. Yeah.
right? But like Guardians, they don't have that. Like, I think Take the Initiative probably should have been would have been a good healthy reprint, right? Like, you could definitely see that I think there was a definite conscious effort to weaken Guardian on the skill card tree of things. Because, I mean, if we look at everything else, right, like the skills in the other classes,
And they're not that good other than Survivor either.
I mean, well, Mystic's good, right? Mystic?
I mean, other than Mystic, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like, Rogue's got, like, imagine if, like, a Guardian equivalent is just, like, deal 1 damage to an enemy when you commit it to a card, right? Like a front-loaded Vicious Blow. And that might sound like, why would they have a front-loaded Vicious Blow when there's a back-loaded Vicious Blow? Why would they have a front-loaded out the door when there's a back-loaded out the door in the form of watch this, right? Like, it's like...
Right.
Like, this like, that's the next thing that in the smaller card pool is that you're also lacking redundancy, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is really, really coming into play here as well, right? And I think that's just the consequence of a small card pool, right? But realistically, this is the smallest Chapter 2 is ever going to be, right?
That's true.
So
yeah.
I don't think we're going to really get... Because it's every 2 years of product, or is it the last 3?
Might be 3?
Is it on the rules here?
Probably.
In the Grimoire? Formats? See if we can find that
Legacy.
in here. Is it current? Oh my god. There we go. So the current environment is the two most recently released, and then the two most, so the deck building and investigator expansions.
Okay.
So we're not going to get our full slice of the core pool. We get like 4 more products in the pool to really get an idea of what that's going to look like.
Right. So this basically means, I mean, to what you're saying here is that what I'm experiencing is maybe unfair to the product because the design should have potentially twice as many cards in playing in current.
Yeah, but
That's fair. It's still interesting to go through it. Let me go back to the soak question. For Guardian, you can leave it here. So you would think there's a lot of soak in Guardian because that's the other way to deal with these. You just tank them, and I think it's true, but it's concentrated in the ally slot in a way that is like not. There's a charisma tax associated with that, or you have to churn through, and there's not a lot of support for that in this card pool in the Tommy deck for having multiple of these in play or benefits for them going out of play. The resilience, I guess, is another possibility. But I've accrued like a lot of trauma in the Tommy deck, and I think I have 3 and 1, and that's without in the thick of it or anything, just from either getting defeated or I don't know, just having to take the no blankets thing. And it's not that that's bad. But it's sort of indicative of you draw Pitfall and you say, I don't know, I guess I'm taking 3 damage.
yeah,
Which just feels so different from the legacy versions of this where you say, yeah, I'll try to pass the test. Like we either have multiple people to commit, or you're holding back luckies, or you have crazy amounts of soak like I had in Carson with, you know, the bracelet and the star, like other things that compound, like synergize together with the play style. Here it's just kind of, guess I'll die.
yeah. No, you're really kind of just like, I don't have a unexpected courage. Like, here, actually, like this. Let's look at this Tommy deck. Let's give it a quick little peek here.
And maybe I'm just built a bad deck. I mean, that could be it too. But there's not much to work with.
But also, like, there's a big thing to be said about why the first scenario is so important to get right, because it kind of sets you off on the place to go, and why I think Arkham has kind of lost some of its wonderful balance in terms of failing forward, right? Where, like, it requires you to do good. But fun fact, if you play House Always Wins and lose by agenda, you get 2 experience. Like, you get 1 experience for getting crushed, and you get 2 for Dr. Henry Armitage not being in your deck, right? And, like, we don't get that kind of stuff anymore. If you lose a scenario, they're just like, dang, too bad you suck. And I think that big shift came because players wanted to win more, because players like winning games, right? But I feel like
Love winning games.
That's another thing that's like what makes it harder is the fact that you guys in this TFA run have not been able to get the snowball effect that they kind of just expect you to have, right?
Right.
And TFA is not a new, like not an old, like not a new scenario, like new campaign, but they did go out of the fail forward pretty quickly.
Yeah. Like there's some good cards here. I thought they did the thing, but the problem was the thing wasn't enough to actually deal with what the scenario wanted you to do, which was to get ahead. I needed to keep I can't get rid of the skill cards. They're good. Like the guts was like the only way for the team to pass some tests. And that said, it wasn't a very good shot because we're going at 5 to whatever the test is, usually 3. What else am I committing?
Yep.
The on the beats are helpful, right?
So
they can be committed.
Yeah, to be real, this actually sounds like a very like old school Arkham when it just came out, where you're just like, I'm gonna be up 2, and you're just like, that's all I can do. But the thing is, like, when you don't know what it's like on the other side, when you could do more, it doesn't feel as bad, right? Because Because, like, I was going to ask, in retrospect, do you think that your deck would have been better if this arm to the teeth was manual dexterities instead?
Or unexpected courage,
Yeah.
probably.
And, like,
I
it's one of
think I
those
was.
things that, yeah, like, I feel like an example is when Travis Britt and I were playing back in the day, we would play, like, on average, 3 different two-ofs of each of the neutral skills in our decks. Just because, like, you kind of had to. And honestly, like, being up 2 on a Rotting Remains usually meant you were only taking 1 horror, worst case, like when things go wrong, which you're kind of were just like, I'm happy about that. But on the other
Yes.
side, now that it happens, I'm like, what? I'm not happy about that. What the heck, you know? But
I mean, honestly, it feels like the Rotting Remains design is better for that. But then when they throw things at you that are test 3 willpower, if you fail, nothing happens, but you also don't progress something. You don't
yep.
parlay with Parlin. You don't, talk to the custodian. You don't do these things that you don't get rid of the conspiracy of blood. These are things that you actually have to pass the test.
Yep.
And once you've spent your guts or your unexpected courage or your bullet, as you will, on those tests and you fail, whether it's an auto fail, which they hurt so much more in limited card pool, or just a -5 or a -3, or you're poisoned and you draw some other token that says you just automatically fail instead, or maybe a lot of those, if you fail riders on the chaos tokens, you almost ignore them in legacy because you're not going to fail.
Yep.
And now you're taking these tests that say, now you take a horror because you failed. Now you place a doom on an enemy because you failed. Now you discard a card at random because you failed, and it hurts so much more. Anyway, you spend your guts, you fail a test, and now you say, that was what I had. I don't have assets that boost me more. I don't have, I hate to say physical training, but there's like the level 4 physical training from the Nathaniel Cho deck does so much for the Guardian to protect themselves from the Mythos.
Yes.
And you get endurance, which is not nothing, but it doesn't have the same payout.
And it's why it's very hard for the designers to, like, design for, like, the people who, like, the players who are like, I want the game to be harder, but I want to play with my full card pool. Mm-hmm. And really the answer, there's no way to do that, because if the games became harder, people are going to play with a limited card pool, right? And I think it's about, like, finding the balance as best they can with that. But that's tough. But it is a very interesting idea of, like, the difference between for each point you fail by effects versus if you fail effects and the number of them. Because the Threads of Fate Conspiracy low card, that probably was just brutal for your team comp.
Yep.
Like, that was, there's no other way to beat that.
Right. And you get used to having something for that. Like, either you're, I don't know. When we just played with the Silas and Carson team, and that was, I think we did just well anyway, but we had ways of dealing with that. Like, Carson could draw cards and commit them to tests. You have a million different ways to retroactively pass the test. Mm-hmm. There just wasn't a problem. Okay, so back to, like, the difficulty question. We should have said this up front, but, like, clearly you can play on a higher or lower difficulty level. Like, that is part of what the intention is for those. And probably playing full legacy, and I hate to say the word abusing, but to know that the card draw combinations, playing what you and I both agree to be the strongest card in the game, Lucky Cigarette Case 3, mm-hmm. I think that allows you to push the difficulty up a little bit more on something like that. And maybe I could have played easy on this and it would have been a more comparable time, because the chaos tokens would have given us a better shot, because we just didn't have, because, like, is it the failing of the deck? Is it the failing of the investigator, the piloting? Or is it truly that you just don't have the stuff in every single deck? And if you want the same Arkham Horror experience, you either have to live with it being more difficult on mm-hmm. you, or you play at a lower difficulty level.
Yeah.
And it feels a little better.
And like, the real answer is it's like a perfect storm, right? Where, mm-hmm. Like, I don't think, like, they look at the cards and you're like, yeah, these cards are, like, these are all, like, legit cards, right? Like they all get the job done, right? Like there's nothing here that you're just like, what the heck is this doing here? But it's like the small things afterwards where you're like, again, it's like, what if this was something else, right? Like what if this, like, because the Armed to the Teeth is not a bad card for a deck that's using items to fight with, right?
Yeah.
But like in retrospect, you're like, ooh, what if this was something else? Or like when something bad happens in a scenario, you get the auto fail, and you know your deck is incapable of getting ahead of it. Are you making the right decisions in that moment to try to salvage it? Like that's hard to know until the scenario's done, right? Then there's also just like the turn to turn stuff where you played the wrong asset without even realizing it, right? Like that's there. Or the game can just flex on you in a way that it doesn't, where you play Logan Hastings and then he gets frozen to death in a crypt chill, right? Like these are things that if that doesn't happen, that pushes you into an entirely different space than if it does happen, right? Like there's a lot of different moving pieces that establish the difficulty of a scenario.
You know, that's funny because the game got me the other way around, where I didn't play Logan because I was afraid of the crypt chill, and instead I drew my weakness, which is loose cannon, which made me lose all my resources to begin with. And you might say, well, why didn't you have any firearms out? You know what scenario I was playing?
That sounds like a City of Archives can't play items type situation. Yeah.
And you can't play Becky either because she's a unique.
Yeah.
She's out of the deck entirely.
Yeah, the Yithians are like, ooh, what's this thing? I need to hold this.
Right? Oh, man. I mean, it worked out, like, okay. And that's part of also, you get so used to, like, crushing scenarios that... I agree with your earlier idea of, like, failing forward probably should be more of the game. But also, as players, we get used to anything but the best is failure. And that's not true either.
Yep, that was a big thing for when I was trying to figure out what winning meant to me in Arkham. And I ultimately came down to, like, I mean, individually, does the deck do what it's supposed to do? But beyond that, any result in a scenario, if you get to that, if you don't get the resolution that's on the agenda, unless it's, like, meant to be that resolution,
right.
That's a win. That's a one scenario, right? And
that's right.
If he can feel bad to get a result that's like, oh, imagine if I got all this XP, or like the last time I played this it went so much better, but your deck still won, right? Like it might have just struggled, but again, some investigators, like not going to point fingers at you, Mr. Tommy Muldoon, but like are just like, this is when I talk about in my tier list where it's the amount of effort you need to put in to get a great result. And like Tommy, just due to the nature of his ability and his stat line, is going to require a tiny bit more effort because he needs pieces to get set up. He has a stat line that you want to enhance, right? And he doesn't have any sort of built-in compression. And those are things that just make one investigator better than another investigator, right? Like Mark Harrigan is, before Tommy and probably after Tommy, is the most played firearm investigator, and that's because he draws cards on his ability, and he has 5 fist. So already your guns are better. So it's just like another piece of the puzzle of what makes a scenario difficult beyond just scenario difficulty.
And it's interesting because I like the ability. I liked having more ammo. I felt like the firearms, like they didn't run out. But I don't think that was enough. That's not... I don't feel like that's as big of a pressure point of the card game design as this ability makes it seem like, right? It's just... It's kind of like when you play, Jim or other investigators, that their ability is just to pass skill tests better. And it's like, well, I was already working to do that. Like, every investigator has to pass skill tests better. So, like, what more are you bringing to the table? And that's harder to find, I think, just with the Chapter 2 stuff here. Now, I will say that for City of Archives, like, we did fine. We got through with 10 XP, which is a lot. In fact, it almost doubled the amount of XP in the deck already. But it wasn't as enjoyable, you know? it wasn't like a great time. It was really kind of like, I guess we'll pull a token and see what happens. And sometimes that's great. Sometimes it's really stressful. You start to notice other parts of the design as well, like the Yithian enemies that make you discard cards when they attack you. You're like, well, oh, usually they're dead before that happens in Legacy. But on the other hand, when I played the, let's set aside the Silas Carson for a second, but the other one with the 3-player one, where I felt like I didn't have to do anything. I was just sitting back because the other decks, again, especially the Finn one, just does so much, like more than it probably should. And I'm not gonna say that's an enjoyable time either, because it feels a little, a little boring.
Yeah, it feels like you're above curve.
Right. Yeah. So it's like that's less fun too. So I don't want to say that like having the bad deck. It's not a bad deck. The undertuned deck is maybe that's more the point, right? That is that's okay too, instead of just sort of sitting back. Remember when we played once where you were playing a Wilson in a 4-player Depths of Yoth, and you didn't you signed up to be the Clover and didn't get a clue for like 6 rounds or something?
Yeah.
Because it was 4-player, right? You just didn't really need to do anything. It just kind of it worked out fine and at the end, but that was kind of one of the times you've cited as being you can do anything in 4-player. But this is also kind of pointing out how important it is in 2-player that everything goes as it goes well.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can kind of change your deck because of that to adapt to the player count. I wanted to look at the Bryn deck for Chapter 2, Tommy, here. Not to like be like, oh, this Bryn did differently, maybe this worked better, because it is apples and oranges, right? It's a 3-player game through Feast of Hemlock Vale. They're very different experiences.
With a Carolyn
right?
and a Marie.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a big thing. But kind of like curious to see even like the differences, because I really like watching Bryn play, because Bryn does a lot of things that I would view crazy or unconventional, and he makes it work, which is I think Bryn's ability here. But we can actually see that there's like a lot of similarities. I mean, in weapon choice, they're practically the same thing. Bryn went into the shotgun, which you do have more time with in 3-player, because again, Carolyn Marie kills the small stuff, right? I was actually like, Bryn played the resilience quite a bit, which I'm kind of curious from like the soak standpoint, if it actually is like just good enough to get there, because it's something that Bryn does a lot, where he really values soak, even if it's all it does. The 2 cards, Something Worth Fighting For and True Grit, I believe they're called. He played those way past the time I would have, but he always made them work really well, which I think maybe is like the thing is that they actually are okay forms of just mythos management, right? And I'm very curious to see that in further play.
Yeah, I actually like that card too reasonably well. It just always feels tough to fit it into the deck because it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right? On its
and it's
own.
Expensive, yeah.
And it's expensive.
And like that's the thing, like in 3-players, you have that space to be like, I'm gonna gain a resource and then play resilience. And in 2-players, you have a lot less of that space to do that. The protective vest actually also has been very impressive. It has pretty good soak when it comes to it.
Yeah.
But again, we're seeing this, like in this Tommy deck that you have here, the bounty and the emergency cash are really good, but I feel like we're still missing like another resource generation card in the Guardian class in some way, right? Or alternatively, good card draw that allows them to like draw their second copy of bounty or their second copy of emergency cash, right? I feel like they're missing that.
The other part is that the money has to get spent, at least in my deck, into endurance sometimes, because I need to beat -5 tokens.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, economy is the same. We're looking at like the custom grip is a fantastic card.
Oh,
and like this is, I think, like an example of some like compression in the Guardian class, right? And it's a very, very good form of compression. I think that Tommy, let's just talk about Tommy for a second again.
Yeah.
I think that Tommy, his ability could have been a lightning bolt. And I think
Reaction.
he would. No. I think like his is a lightning bolt during your turn. Spend one resource to discard a firearm asset to play one. I think he should have been able.
I think it should be a reaction, so you could use it with that card.
Oh, when
right?
you play like that, yeah, that could be cool.
Yeah, when you play a firearm.
I think even beyond custom grip, like I think he should be able to. I don't think it would have been bad if he had some action compression where his ability was a lightning bolt.
Okay, just have a free play. Or you spend money for it. Yeah.
I think that like this is an example of the difference of what I view as what other classes would have got. I 100% am convinced if this was a rogue, he would have got a lightning bolt ability to do this, right?
Right.
But it's like that Guardian fairness. The Guardian are always just kind of dragged back a bit because they're the fair class. And that's not great. Guardians should be a little bit unfair in some ways.
Yeah, they can have their niche. Like that's So going back to his events, the other big difference here is that this deck isn't getting any clues, which is it's 3-player. You don't need to.
Yep.
And I don't necessarily need to either that much, but the on the beats are there not necessarily for investigating, but for the scenario tests, like the parlaying in Threads of Fate or in City of Archives. And honestly, just the icons. It seems bad, but it's taking up deck space that I otherwise would love to put in some other like bigger weapons or something else. But with the little XP at the beginning, it felt necessary to get. And I think they're fine. Like +3 actually is a very good number for the whole phase. It's ugh.
Yep.
It feels a little ugh.
And then on the events here, very similar to the skills, very similar to your pool, like incredibly similar, which makes sense. I think he just put the Indomitable in after the longest night. So I think that's what that was there for. But as you can see, like pretty 1-to-1 for that kind of thing, which makes sense because you are so limited in this.
But also you don't need gut in this deck, right? Because Marie and Carolyn can probably handle all of that.
Yeah, and then he just like tanks the horror is like his philosophy. So I do think that because also we have a Carolyn who heals horror, right? We have that as well, right? So the horror is a little bit less scary. To close out this video and the podcast here, let's look at this Marie deck that I'm playing. Just to show like the difference between these card pools and then also what this ability means for an investigator with a limited card pool, because I definitely see and understand the struggles that you're going through with this current Tommy deck, but it's kind of crazy because with this Marie deck, I feel like I'm playing Legacy, and a big reason for that is just these two lines here that are so seemingly inconsequential, but they are absolutely nutter for like just making sure that you are consistent and are able to win. And this goes to what we were saying about consistency. And it's to the point where I'm able to, because of this, just play decks for cards for fun to see if these are actually like good cards. Like I'm doing what I would do in Legacy, where I'd be like, I want to try this card out because my deck is popping off so much, right? And this is not a good card for my deck, but you have that privilege because 3 players to the 2-player because of action efficiency through my economy. Like my compression is really good, right? And these are just like, it's like the perfect storm of everything coming together, because we have our ability that draws a card. We have Jim, so like now whenever I take damage, I get to draw a card and then look at 2 and draw a card, right? I have Offering Bowl, which lets me draw 2 cards and then gain 2 resources, right? Like that's insane. And this is all lightning bolt speed, right? And like, there are costs associated with this. Like, I need to have a way to heal this damage. But like, in the same like environment that this Tommy Muldoon deck is, they got a counterpunch that like heals the damage that you're taking. It doesn't damage the enemy, right? But like this is already so much like ability and compression that's like coming into just these small pieces, right?
I mean, you have one of those too, Retribution,
Yeah.
and also that does damage back. And those are both fast, right?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. And then like I'm running the like what is it, the 14 wild icons in my skill, and then like healing while I'm taking a test. Clue compression, right? Like the Mystic class, like this is just like it's a notable night and day difference in comparison to what the Guardian pool has offered to them, because the Guardians have good allies, right? But they don't have a motivational speech like effect, and I think that Guardian could feasibly. This might be a controversial thing to mention here, but I think that I would have been in a better place if Charisma wasn't printed as a neutral card and Guardians got a better Charisma in their pool. I think that would be better. I'm going to go as far to say I think Guardians should have been able to do it at like level 0. Like maybe not permanent, but a card in their deck that they could play, right? I think that it's part of the class, and the Guardians need to start having some broken identity to take advantage of, to keep up with some of the other classes in a way.
So let me also say, I agree with you. The ally synergy is just missing here. They're here, but they need something extra for that, because every other class gets that. And we'll come back to the Mystic as the example for sure in a sec. But I've played, so yeah, I should have said this at the beginning, but I've played Chapter 2 only decks. I've played a lot of Brethren of Ash, and 3 scenarios is usually fine. But I played Marie through all of Dungeon Legacy, and you might think that drawing a lot of cards in her is a little bit dangerous, but you know what? It's still fun, and you still do very well, even though it's a little bit interesting. But that went, like you said, like Legacy, because everything in her card pool just seems to mesh together so well that it's covering the weaknesses and turning them into strengths even of the previous version of Mystics that we saw. And lets her see everything that she needs to do, even if there's not like redundancy in the spells. Like we don't have an Azure Flame on top of a Shriveling, but we don't need them because you'll find these things relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And I've also played a kind of a little different, but I played a original Skids O'Toole through Drowned City with just Chapter 2 cards, and that also worked well because I think his card pool and his ability kind of circumvent some of the other issues we were talking about. But yeah, I think it really comes down to there's something missing for the Guardians and the Tommy deck or Tommy Investigator that's just not, I'm just not vibing with that play style.
I mean, I think the big thing is that it's the mono class, right? Because like you said, Skids worked well. I think if Katami could do anything to just find some sort of compression, he'd probably be feeling a lot happier. But because he doesn't have that like other way. Like he has to deal with just these cards, right? Like, I think in Legacy, Tommy is probably pretty good, right? But when you're looking at just this pool of cards, Tommy is definitely being like watching even the other mono class investigators and being like, why can't I do that? Like, why can't I do that thing that they're doing, right?
And that's actually, I feel like Marie, while she's very, very good, I don't think she's abusing some of these legacy type of interactions that we've come to enjoy and have a lot of fun with, partly because I think all the cards I think she's very good. All the cards kind of come together at the same cost, right? Like the damage isn't nothing, even though you want to do this. The card draw is very good, Jim is very good, but it doesn't feel like you're getting, I don't know, like the stack string-alongs and pickpocketing type of, and Lucky Cigarette Case 3s type of value, right? It's still a little bit more limited than that.
Yeah. And like I want to just say as well for everyone watching this, I do think that this Guardian pool, specifically the firearms, is impactful in Legacy, right? Like, I think that these are cards like Bounty, Counterattack, Custom Grip, right? These are, and Make 'em Sing, I'm a big proponent of this card. These are all cards that are relevant in Legacy. It's just that when you're looking at a very compressed pool, it's hard to see the value of these because you're missing like everything else around it to really make them like have a home.
That's like the scratching head part where I'm like, I know these cards are all good and they have all done things good on their own. They're missing the secret sauce, and maybe the secret sauce is the investigator card. So I probably need to take Daniela through a campaign and just see how different that is. She has similar stats on the defensive end, and she doesn't get as much sanity, but she can rely on the survivor stuff to make up some of the difference.
Yeah, I think the big thing that the secret sauce that I think that is truly missing is just good card draw.
Yeah.
Like, I think your deck would have been, imagine if your deck had Overpower 2, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my god.
Like, just like, that would have been huge to just give you like a little bit more juice to really make it work.
Man, just going back to that search of draw, and there's nothing.
Yeah. But as we said here, this is the smallest it's ever gonna be, right? So things are gonna get interesting. I'm hoping that they do some. I'm hoping they're very focused in how they do rotation, that they try things out that might be too strong, but the idea is that current is the official format. So then they can be like, yeah, but it'll eventually leave, so we're happy to give, like, Guardian this crazy, like, card for this thing, and then Legacy is just already busted, right? So what are they going to do? Make it more busted? I mean, yes, that is what's going to happen to Legacy, but that's okay. That's why it exists.
Yeah, we're already there. I don't think it's going to change people's perspective on playing it or not. I think if you've already determined that's the way you want to play the game, that's fine.
Yeah, I have a hard time getting to 30 cards as is, right? Like getting down to 30. So being able to more cards in that pool is not going to make that harder because it's already very hard. All right. Any closing thoughts about all this?
I miss Garish.
I get it. My big closing thought here is that if you find yourself like losing Arkham scenarios, try to ask yourself like every aspect of the onion of difficulty, if that was the reason that you think was part of this, because I think that's a good thing. It's like, was it the scenario cards? Was it the token I pulled? Was it my deck? What's my card pool? Was it my deck? Was it the choices I made? Am I able to get ahead if I'm behind? Like, there's all these little pieces that I think are really good to analyze when you're going with it, when you're playing at home, to all you awesome viewers there. And I think there's a lot to discover and learn about how you can be like, what would I do differently if I'm playing this again? And even though this took me a while to learn, I had this revelation while I was playing that Initials Tommy deck, where if you draw a card and you're not happy that you drew it, why is that card in your deck, right? Yeah. So that's a good way to look at it as well. If you draw a card and you're just like, oh, this does nothing, then maybe that's a sign that, hey, what else could this have been that I would have been happy to see drawing here?
I guess I'll close also by saying, like, don't be too hard on yourself. The game does have a lot of random elements. Sometimes you draw a bad token when you put a lot into it, and now you just don't have anything to back that up. That's not necessarily your fault. That's okay. Just keep playing. I think it's hard to evaluate until you've played through multiple scenarios with a particular deck. Then you can diagnose a little bit better. Like, truly could have been bad things happen, and that's part of what makes the game interesting. So don't like overreact to any one thing either.
Yep, 100%. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this Arkham podcast. We'll be back for another one of these sometime in the future. But in the meantime, Have a good one. If you want to support the channel, like, comment, subscribe, or if you want to go above and beyond, you can join all these patrons over here, or YouTube membership. We have that going now as well. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. And as always, a GG's.